Hey, it's Derek Depker here with fellow author Margaret Nash. And today we're going to be diving into some very interesting topics here for you as an author. We're going to be talking about Margaret's journey. She's just published her sixth book as of recording this. So we'll hear all about some of her insights and what it's like writing books, publishing books, how she gets ideas and inspiration. And then also some insights from her in the topic of her new book, some of these ancient teachings and what they can reveal to you about how to have more success in your life as an author, as someone who's in business. So welcome, Margaret.
Thank you, Derek. Nice to see you again.
Yeah. And so you have a very prolific library of books now. You know, you've published 6 books. You also have a background. You're a fellow NLP coach. For those who don't know, that's neuro-linguistic programming. You've led seminars, you're an author, hypnotherapist. So I'm curious to know a little bit about your background and how you got into doing what you're doing now and publishing books.
You mean the life coaching and the NLP, or the book publishing? Which is of most interest?
I would say, how you went from going into doing the work you were doing before, which I know your background, so you can fill us in a little bit about your background. I know you've done some in business and, I guess you'd say an entrepreneur, and then getting into the whole world of book writing and publishing.
Okay. Well, I'm American, but I moved to England when I was in my 20s, and worked there for many years, and was a business trainer. I trained all over Europe and the UK, and then got into I remember one of my people that I trained, one of my clients said, "Have you heard this thing called neuro-linguistic programming?" And I said, "No, not really." And then I just kept getting asked about it. And so finally I said, yeah, I'll train something on it. And so I went on a weekend course on it, thinking I could just pick it up. And I think like 5 years later, I emerged, I got really passionate about it. And that led me into more coaching and mentoring and life coaching. And then I kind of got intrigued with hypnotherapy. You and I shared the same trainer, Tad James, and he was, as you know, a great hypnotherapist. And so I got interested in that. And it just kind of evolved, which I think most of us who are in this side of things, in life coaching and writing, we kind of get here. We don't start out life saying, I'm going to be a writer and a life coach. It evolves over time. So my business background plus my interest in personal development and the whole kind of movement, the human potential movement, Tony Robbins, I saw Tony Robbins back in the 90s in Belgium, did the fire walk, way back then. He's been around a while. And so have I. So anybody who's kind of interested in this kind of genre, we kind of evolved to it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for me, being in personal development, very similar. You kind of get into that whole world of personal growth, personal development. And I know for me, a lot of it started with books, reading books.
Absolutely.
And so I think that idea of being an author, that just kind of is ingrained if you're a part of this world. So I'm curious then, what was the very first book that you published and what inspired that?
The first book was called Rebellious Aging, a self-help guide for the old hippie at heart, because I realized that I'm now living in Mexico, and the expat community here is a lot of old hippies, and kind of rich old hippies, and they're not like, they're not still dope smoking and barefoot and that sort of thing, but still have that kind of renegade mindset, and getting older and retiring. And I just wanted to write a book that kind of told about my journey, because I had a really transitional journey from England over to Houston and then to Mexico, and a lot of transitions going on in my life at the same time. And it was a real struggle, and I got through it. And so I kind of wanted to help other people who are going it through. What I saw was that people in my generation tend to be going through divorce and kids leaving home and retiring and all these big things, relocating to a different, country. They tend to be doing that all at one time and not realizing how traumatic that can be for them. So that was that book. That was about transitions and how to survive them. And yeah.
Yeah, so that's a very common theme for those who are writing, I guess you'd say how-to advice type of books. It's like, what have you overcome? What have you been through? And
exactly. That's the question right there.
Yeah. Another great question is what's the book I wish I had? When I was going through this, if I could have only had this book, what would that book be? And then you go write it, if it doesn't exist or not in the form that you would have liked. So that's great. And then I was curious, did you have any particular big challenges when it came to writing the book? Maybe that's technical, maybe that's actually organizing it. It could be any of those things.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah, no, I don't know where to start on that, but I found the writing to be really, and I always have, I found the writing to be really obsessive. I'm not like one of these writers that you hear about like Ernest Hemingway and, well, obviously, but and Graham Greene, who like write 1,000 words a day or 2,000 words a day at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not like that. I kind of get an idea and it kind of gestates with me. And I kind of get the idea and I tease it out and I start making notes, and it can take months and months before it kind of gives birth. And once I start writing, I get obsessive and I can't do anything else because, it's just, if I stop writing, like if I went and took a few days off or a week off or something from the book, then I can't remember what it's about. And so I have to go back and start again. So I just have to kind of keep going. But I think the main thing that I struggle with is organizing it so that it kind of makes sense and it's readable and kind of flows. I think that's the big challenge.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. That can almost always be a challenge, even for more experienced authors. How you have all these ideas, but it's kind of like all out there. Like, how do you wrangle this all together into a cohesive structure that makes sense? And so what helped you then overcome that challenge? What was the process like?
Well, I've never been one of these authors to use one of these help things. What's the name of the one that you write things in? I even paid $50 for it, I think, and then couldn't use it. I just use Word and I use Post-it notes, and I have a little whiteboard and I stick them on there, and I just try to get things, or I'll put them on my dining room table and just try to, just write things down and just try to get some sort of order. I play around with them for weeks sometimes, just trying to get some structure to it. And I change it about 10 times before I actually write it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing there is it's like externalizing something. Yeah. So in the sense that this is even the power of journaling, where like you have all these thoughts going in your head, and sometimes just taking it from your head onto a sheet of paper or putting it out into the world can help. And then you talk about Post-it notes. Sometimes the physical interaction or moving things around, playing with it can help. It actually, I don't remember the exact neuroscience behind it, but I remember hearing about Watson and Crick, who discovered DNA and double helix and all that. And I remember hearing something about what they did was like playing with models, and like they needed to take something kind of abstract and physically interact with it. So there's something about that process of whether it's Post-it notes, I suppose you could do it digitally as well, but moving things around, playing around with it, and being embracing that process in the sense that it's okay if it doesn't all just make sense in your head. Sometimes you need to get it out of your head onto something and be able to move around. Is that your experience? It sounds like.
Absolutely. I have to do it physically. I have to. I can't just do it all on the computer. That's what I was trying to say. I was trying to remember that the writing aids that you have where they have all the notes and you can put them on the computer. I can't do that. I have to write it down. I have to use Post-it notes or whiteboard or whatever, things like that. or index cards. I started out with index cards. I quite like index cards. They're kind of nice. They're a little bit more substantial than Post-its, so they don't blow away in the wind.
Yeah. So, and that's a great tip. I mean, even for a fiction author, plotting things out, the characters, having something to move around and play with. What happens if I take this out? What happens if I add it in? What happens if I make this before that? And that is one of those things, or even when I'm giving writing feedback sometimes to people, I'm like, try it this way. I don't know if it's going to work, but I need to like see it this way and read it. And then I'll either be like, oh, that's better. I'll be like, no, actually it was better the first way. But it's like, you don't really know if it's just kind of an abstract idea. You actually have to play with it, like you're talking about. So you published that book. You've since published multiple books since then. I'd love to know if you could share a bit more with the listener here about your newest book and what inspired your new book.
Okay, well, the newest book is The Renegade Coach's Guide to a Business Success Formula Hidden in Ancient Writings. And you and I have talked about this a lot. We love Stoic writings and old writings, and neurolinguistic programming is actually based on ancient like Zen philosophies and things like that. And I love the kind of interface of ancient writings with life coaching today and how it kind of interacts. And so this book was actually inspired by something you said to me when we were coaching. You were coaching me one day, and I talk about it in the book, how you inspired it. You asked me a question, and I remember just being just kind of dumbfounded by it. I remember I literally couldn't breathe because it reminded me of something, and I couldn't remember what it reminded me of. And you kind of said it seemed really simple. I was like complaining because I wasn't doing my blog. And you just calmly said, why aren't you blogging? And I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the end game is here. I don't know what the results I'm after. I don't have any, I don't know what I'm getting from it. And this, load of nonsense. And you just were quiet and let me kind of drop into my own trap there. And then you said, why don't you just do it to do it? You enjoy doing it. Why don't you just do it and let go of the results? And you said things can happen when you just get busy and do things. You probably don't even remember saying that to me, do you? And I thought, where have I heard that before? And I remembered I had heard it from way back in the 80s when I was, I got into real estate in England. And I had a mentor, and his name was Brian. And I talk about him in the book and this story. And Brian said, Brian was this hardcore salesman. He was a big guy. He was, an all shucks kind of smoker and all of this. But he was a great, great mentor. And one of the things that he used to tell us to do was just get busy and do it and don't worry about the results. And it was like what you said just sounded exactly like that. And I followed Brian to the T. And he had 4 main principles. And I followed him to the T, and I got to number 1 salesman over 40 offices in a year. And just by following exactly what he said. And that's what and then I realized all of this stuff was in Stoicism. All of it was in neurolinguistic programming. All of it was in ancient Indian writings. And so I thought, well, that's kind of fun. I'm going to put this in a book and just kind of pull it together and see how it goes. So that's kind of how the book was born.
Yeah. And there's a great lesson there. I mean, as you're talking about, it is ancient wisdom, this idea of letting go of the result. Yes. And it's one of those things because, if a person doesn't understand the full context, there's something to elaborate on here. And that is, there are times where I'm very much like, what's the outcome that you're going for? Let's get clear on the outcome. What's the result? Because that's going to be part of
absolutely
motivation. What's the why behind it? Because essentially there was no why. So it's like you can do something just to do something, but then you might as well just do anything if there's no sort of direction that we're going in. So it's clear that this came in a context of knowing you, knowing kind of what was leading into that. And it's like this, there's a time to really get clear on the result and the outcome. And then there's also a time to let go of that and just embrace the process
well,
of it.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is, and Brian had very, very clear, goals for us as salespeople, selling houses. It wasn't about not having goals, but it's about set your goals, get them clear in your head, your big why, which you always talk about in coaching. And that was like really crucial for me. When we talked about that, and then let go of the goals, then just do the action and let go of the goals, because you can't let go of the results. You can't control the results. And that's, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you clarified that, because it's not about not having goals. You got to have goals. Then let go of them.
Yeah. And since we've had a prior conversation about this, I feel it'd be really good for, someone who's watching this, listening to this. You, when you mentioned blogging, it's also is like writing emails, writing emails to your list and things like that. So what's one of the outcomes or results that did happen once you just go, okay, I'm going to just start sharing messages with my audience?
Well, this was another thing that came from kind of what you said and what Brian said. It's like you don't know what the results are going to be sometimes. You may have outcomes, but one of the things Brian used to say was just, when the market was really slow in real estate, and we would all be just panicking because nobody was buying or selling. He would just say, get on the phone, ring everybody, call everybody and send out every house that we have to everybody, just get busy. And then he said something interesting. He said, you will sell something. He said, but it won't be from that activity. Something else, it'll be from something else, because you've just stirred up energy. And that's kind of what you said. You said, just get busy. And sometimes it's really interesting. Things can happen. So you get busy and you kind of, stir up the universe, the energy. And I get different results every time I blog. Sometimes I'll get new clients, and then sometimes I'll sell a book. Sometimes I'll get a review for a book, and you never know. Sometimes somebody will contact me to go on a podcast. So you just do it and something will happen.
Yeah, that's so key. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for me too. Especially when I was starting out, where I didn't have much of an audience. And so I imagine the author here going, first of all, how does this apply? Well, this could be sending out a regular email newsletter. That's really the big thing that I recommend. At the very least, no matter what genre you're in, have a consistent newsletter. Now, that doesn't have to be every day, although, I like a more consistent approach. But even if it's, if someone's going, well, the last newsletter I wrote was 6 months ago, okay, at least get it consistent to once a month or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I have like 7 people on my list or on my followers. Like, what difference is it going to make? And the thing is, this idea of letting go of the result. Well, first of all, you're going to get better just by practicing it. So if nothing else, you're training yourself. Absolutely. The other thing is exactly like you're saying. Sometimes you just you write something and someone goes, I've had this, oh, I really love this. Can I share this in a group that I'm in? Yeah. And then now all of a sudden people are giving you exposure, or I give a talk, and just like you're saying, someone will go, hey, could you come speak for my group or whatever? So it's like this, these little actions. You never know who's going to be in the audience, what's going to pick up from there. And it's funny you talk about Tony Robbins. Like Tony Robbins' first events, I've heard from multiple people, as most people when they're starting out, he didn't have a bunch of people signing up for his firewalk. He was speaking to small little groups.
I didn't know that.
When he was first starting, first getting going, he wasn't speaking to, thousands and thousands of people. He was, small rooms, struggling to build his whole brand and whatnot. And I've heard that from a mentor of mine. I think he started maybe his first speaking event or something. There's a couple people in the audience or whatever. So it's I've heard other people, they go in and they put on this event. They're hoping hundreds of people are going to show up, and there's 2 people there, and one of them will wandered in. They're in the wrong room or whatever. So it's but if they didn't start, if they didn't first
Yeah.
take those initial steps,
Yeah.
it never
Yeah.
would have snowballed into, becoming
Absolutely.
the great
Yeah.
speakers, leaders, thought leaders, authors
Mm.
that they are.
Mm.
So there's a lot of wisdom there. I'm curious, anything, I mean, there's a lot in your book. Is there any other like ancient wisdom, maybe from the Stoics or,
Mhm.
from Stoicism or somewhere else that you found has been really helpful for you in terms of your success, your productivity, anything like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, so for instance, one of the principles in the book, I have 4 principles from Brian, and one of them is the control principle, and that's in Stoicism. It's the number one tenet of Stoicism. Focus on what you can control, and what you can't control, let go of. Do not focus on. It is not important. And that's really, it sounds so sensible, but it's actually really hard for people to do. People like in politics or the pandemic, there's so many things there that people stress about that they have absolutely zero control about. And I kind of talk about that in here, about how we tend to go down these avenues and getting ourselves stressed out. And like, for instance, you can't control how many people come to an event. You can't control it. What you can control is your marketing and publicity and getting yourself ready for it. But you can't control that. So let go. And it's the same principle about letting go of results. You can't control results. So let go of them. You can't control it, but you can control the work you do getting ready for it. So that's pure Stoicism.
Yeah. And it's something that, I see this in the author world. Some people will go on, and I can appreciate, some people just wanting to rant to let off steam or whatever, but I can't believe Amazon is doing whatever they're doing,
Absolutely.
And
it's like, yes,
yeah.
yes. Perfect.
Yeah. And it's in the, like, on this whole thing, and it's like, okay,
Right.
but like, what are you going to do? Like you adapt to it.
I got a bad review. What do I do about it? They were wrong. They gave me a 1 star and it was just totally wrong. And it's like, let it go, dude. Just don't fight it. They're not going to let you take it down, sort of. And don't try to fight Amazon. I mean, even the name,
Yeah, it's like you're not going to be able to do. That's a perfect example.
Yes,
The 1-star
really
review. Of course, it's frustrating if someone leaves a 1-star review, especially if they didn't even read the book or it's totally unfair or whatever.
Yeah.
And then take a step back though, and this is where it's like it can make sense logically. But as you say, I mean, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to actually live this out, and that is going. Well, I can't control the 1-star review, but I can control getting enough positive reviews that it outweighs it. Yeah. And it's, of course, it's easier to just.
And I can control my reaction to criticism. That's what you can control. You can have an attitude towards criticism. Like, oh, I wonder if they're right. And let me look at that. And oh, it's good that I don't have all 5-star, because then it makes it look more realistic. It's just, and that's another principle. The obstacle is the way, which is also in Stoicism. Don't fight things you can't win. Just make it into something that's a winner.
Yeah, and that's, on that note, that's a very practical thing. Speaking of 1-star reviews, I've seen some great uses where people use 1-star reviews in their marketing.
Yeah.
There's an ad for Snowbird Mountain. They got a 1-star review, and they made a whole ad about it because it said too advanced, 1 star, and that was their ad, because they know they're speaking to people who want something more advanced. One of my mentors, Ian Stanley, he got like this complaint from a guy, and he just wrote an email kind of like ripping it apart. It was really funny or whatever, but he's taken like this complaint that someone sent him, very unfair, but it's like making a whole joke about it. And then at the end, it's like, so, he links to his book. So there's ways you can have fun with these things. And it's exactly that idea. Instead of going, you're not going to change what's already happened. Obviously, if someone's already left the review or something, maybe in some situations there's something that could be done. In this case, it's like, well, let's roll with it. Let's have fun with it. Or at the very least, let's not focus on that and focus on what you can control, which is get more positive reviews, reach more of the people who you can reach. Maybe if there's something fair in that review, take the feedback. Or pre-frame in the book description, this is not for you if, XYZ, you're looking for this isn't going to be what this book is. So don't read it or whatever.
Perfect.
So there's lots of strategies there. And it's these principles that, again, on the surface, you hear it and you go, yeah, that makes sense. The thing is actually remembering it and living it, which can be the challenge. So
absolutely.
That leads into, the best thing is, get your book for those listening and go even deeper. Is there one quick tip in terms of how you make these principles and this wisdom a practice in your life?
How do I make it a practice? The control principle, that's the number one. But, just what you were talking about just then about handling criticism and handling people being nasty and that sort of thing. We get that a lot these days because of social media and being online. And I love the response that Epictetus, who was a Stoic writer back in the first century, he was criticized harshly for something he had done or said. And his response was, gosh, did they say that about me? They obviously don't know about all the other stuff, and he just made a joke of it. He just laughed. He said, gosh, they don't know the half of it. Is that the best they can do? So, it's, I guess, having that attitude, it really kind of reduces your fear of failure. And if you can just laugh at yourself and laugh at your, criticisms and let it go, then that's a biggie. That's a biggie because that means you're pretty bulletproof in everything you do.
Yeah. And it also, I remember, I think it was Marcus Aurelius had this idea, and I don't think I could quote him exactly. So it's really paraphrasing the concept of just kind of starting the day being like, people are going to be rude to me today. People are going to be unfair. They're going to be rude. They're going to be whatever. And it's just like, I just know it. Like you're kind of prepping yourself and going, there's going to be, humans are humans. So I'm not, rather than expecting everything to work out perfectly. Like, let's just expect that there's going to be
Bring it on.
Totally unfair. So I'm going into it with that attitude. Then you're ready for it. But then also, if it actually turns out to be pleasantly, things went even better today, then you're pleasantly optimistic, or you're pleasantly surprised while going in with it. Mm-hmm. And it could sound, I said optimistic, although it almost sounds pessimistic to be like people are going to be really mean or whatever it is, but it's actually having a very just sort of grounded approach. Like some people are going to be like, I remember working as a valet parker. Okay, some people are going to come in tonight and they're going to be rude. Be rude. They're going to be upset. But you know what? Actually, probably 95% of people are going to be totally fine, pleasant, or very nice. And I can focus on the 5% who weren't nice, or I can focus on all the people who are very pleasant. And that's up to each of us to decide what we're gonna focus on. Absolutely. Yes. Love it. Well, this has been great, Margaret. How can people find out more about you, your work, as well as your new book? Okay, you can go on my website, Margaret Nash Coach. That's pretty easy. MargaretNashCoach.com. That's my website. You know what? My new book isn't up on it yet. So you have to go on Amazon for that. It's not. Thanks for reminding me. I've got to get that done. But it's called Business Success Formula Hidden in Ancient Writings by Margaret Nash. So that's definitely on Amazon. So they can go there and see some of my other books too. So thank you. Yeah, we'll link out to this, and that's Margaret, Margaret, and then Nash, Nash, So margaretnashcoach.com.
Coach,
You
dot
can
com.
also go on Amazon and search for Margaret. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much
It
for sharing
has.
your experience and your wisdom. Any final thoughts you want to leave with the listener here?
I think the most important thing when you're writing is finding your voice. But we could talk about that for another hour. But, finding your voice is, once you find your voice, then you're home free.
Yeah. And on that, I can say finding your voice, it's one of those things where it's like, how do you do it? Well, there's certainly tips and techniques. Part of it is just that consistency. You're consistently writing, sharing, putting out content. And I don't know that there's a shortcut that I could have done it in, a day. It just took that consistency.
Rewriting 10 times and reading it back to you and that sort of thing. To yourself. Anyway.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Again,
You're welcome. Thank you. And it's been lovely to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So that's margaretnashcoach.com. Take care.
Bye-bye.